Hello, peeps and creeps, and welcome to the Fright Club. I'm Gav, he's Danny.
Hello.
We're the Fright Club NI, and this is a brand new episode of Monday Night Frights. On tonight's show, we're talking about the Vincent Price classic from 1953, House of Wax.
Ooh.
You shouldn't have done that, my dear.
And we're back with another episode of Monday Night Frights. It's episode 4.7. Tonight, talking about the 1953 classic starring Vincent Price. It's House of Wax.
Hey.
Yo! Danny, this is the first time you had seen this.
Yeah, I've never seen this before. I will actually be honest, bar like sort of wee cameo bits and stuff from Vincent Price and stuff, mostly his bit in Sesame Street with Kermit the Frog. I've never actually watched a Vincent Price horror film before, so this was a first. This was an experience for me to see him as, you know, at the height of his acting career. And yeah, I actually really enjoyed this. There's something about those kind of like old timey, especially when you can see they've just sort of made a new technology. I think that was one of my favorite things about this, is that it was made for like 3D cinema, and there's just a lot of stuff in it. Like there's that one really obvious scene with the guy with the paddle balls, where you're just like, that's like 10 straight minutes of playing to the camera. But there's also like a fight scene where the person very obviously like ducks down as a punch comes towards the camera, and I was just like, look at that, they've discovered something new and they're absolutely going for it. But yeah, I love that there about it, and I love the acting in it, because again, it's so of its time and campy and over the top and fucking misogynistic as hell. And yeah, I thought it was great. And I love that's the thing about like all these old horrors, like when we watch it now, like I'm pretty sure if you were to sit down a teenager now and be like, this was a horror movie, they'd be like, fuck off, like it's not even scary. But at that time, this was like the height of horror.
I don't know, man. There's a few. Yeah, I mean, it's no jump scary type films, but later on when you get into the basement and you see all the sort of mannequins and the things that are happening, it's kind of pretty creepy.
It's creepy, but could you imagine how it would all be done today? You know?
Yeah. Well, it was remade in 2005.
Yeah.
Starring that Oscar worthy actress Paris Hilton, of course, was in it, and she gets fucking. I haven't actually seen the remake, but I've seen images of it and obviously seen some footage of it, and I know she gets done in it. So it's I think most people went to see that because they just wanted to see her get killed, which, you know, is fair enough. But it's funny you should say about Vincent Price being, you know, you haven't seen any of Vincent Price's stuff over the years. Obviously, you spoke about Sesame Street there. He was Ratigan as well in Basil the Great Mouse Detective. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Oh, yeah.
So Ratigan, I think, is one of the most underrated Disney villains. And he's lent his voice to a lot of famous characters and obviously music videos over the years, Thriller and stuff like that. But this film was probably the film that put him on the map in terms of being a leading star, because it kind of launched his career, really. I suppose this film did. You know, obviously he'd done stuff before this, but this was made in 1953, and after this he was really kind of, don't want to say typecast, but he was sort of taken on board by a lot of studios and filmmakers who saw this film and said, he can be my leading man. And he, you know, from this he would go on to make loads of films with Roger Corman, you know, the Edgar Allan Poe stuff that he did from 1960 onwards, Fall of the House of Usher and Pit and the Pendulum and The Raven and that kind of stuff. And then he did, you know, plethora of fucking horror films throughout the late 60s and right through the 70s. One of his most famous was probably House of Haunted Hill, which was out in 59. I want to say 58, 59. And I could be wrong there with the dates, but he's amazing in that. So that you said you haven't seen a lot of his stuff. I would go and watch that as soon as you can, because that's such a fucking fun movie.
I have to get on it.
But this was the first 3D color movie. There was a 3D movie before this, in this style of 3D, from a major motion picture studio, of course. Warner Brothers released this, but this was the first one in color. And it was also the first one that was using stereophonic sound, I want to call it. It was quite a kind of historic film in that way.
Yeah.
But
revolutionary.
Yeah, revolutionary.
Silver screen.
Definitely, yeah. It was directed by Andre DeTof.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that's his name, and I apologize if I was pronouncing it wrong there. But he was. I'm not familiar with the director, but I think he started making films in the 30s, and I know he's done a few westerns over the years, and he's done loads of films. And it was written by a studio writer called Crane Wilbur, and this is actually a remake in itself. Oh. This was a remake of a 1933 film, I think it was, called The Mystery of the Wax Museum, which was a similar premise and plot and setup and stuff. A few tweaks, they tweaked this to make it a wee bit more kind of in the horror realm, whereas the first one was more of a kind of a straight up sort of mystery type film. They really leaned towards the horror in this one. And then the original one in 1933 was actually based on a play called The Waxworks. So this story goes back quite a long time, and it's, that we spoke about the remake from 2005, but this kind of plot or story has been used in other films as well, that you could recognize in other horror films as well. Over the years, it's just a fucking fantastic story, I think, and I adore this film.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I think The Waxworks is a perfect setting for horror as well. I think there's something kind of innately creepy about waxworks figures. Have you ever been to the waxworks in Dublin?
Oh yes.
And they're fantastic figures. We may have to throw up a few choice examples of the figures they have on show. But yeah, the whole idea of people wanting to go in because they want the macabre and they want to see the gruesome, and I think that's what is quite interesting about this film, is that the protagonist, played by Vincent Price, his whole thing at the start of the film is I don't want to play into that. I want to show things of beauty because I can craft things of beauty. But then obviously when his world gets turned upside down and his beauty gets burnt, that's it. He sort of gives in. He's like, right, well, I'll give the people what they want, and if they want the macabre, then I'm gonna go extra. I'm gonna be totes extra.
Go like overboard. There's a great line at the start where he says his partner talks about he wants to kind of be a bit more lavish in what they do and stuff, because he's only in it for the money. He's not the artist or the creator. And Vincent Price's character, who's called Henry Jarrod, I think his name is, says, "Oh, morbid curiosities. Now I can do that," but he's obviously not interested in that. He wants to do more of this sort of historical characters from history, and Joan of Arc and Marie Antoinette, and who else has he got? He's got Lincoln in there, doesn't he?
Lincoln and John Wilkes Booth.
Exactly, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But so obviously starring Vincent Price, somebody who grew up with the voice from Thriller and recognizing his voice from certain things over the years. As I said, I'm a big fan of Ratigan from Basil the Great Mouse Detective, and he's an actor that I wasn't really that familiar with in terms of his older films, but as I've got older, I've kind of went back now and discovered all his older stuff, and man, he's right up there for me, top 5 of all time. Just amazing screen presence, and that voice, like, it's just his voice. He just speaks, and it's like automatically I'm just like, I have tunnel vision. I'm just looking at him. I'm not looking at anything going on around him, because he's got that presence.
He that's it. I mean, as I said, I'd never watched anything with him in, but it's him. Like, I don't think you necessarily have to have seen any of his films if you have an interest in horror. Chances are you're going to have heard his voice at least. And as you say, with the Thriller video, I think that for a lot of us, after a certain point, that's where our introduction kind of comes when it comes to Vincent Price. But yeah, what what an absolute presence, and just straight from the outset of this film. And I think it's nice that he is introduced in this film as he's not a villain straight away. It's not until circumstance makes him the villain of the piece, you know. And yeah, I mean, we'll talk about it more, but you can definitely draw comparisons from this within a later movie that we've discussed before that we absolutely fucking love.
Yes.
But the comparisons were so uncanny, and I was just like, Mr. Raimi, have you been sipping of the? Have you been supping of this tea? Have you?
Yeah, he definitely has. He definitely has. Couple of clues there as to what we're talking about, but just wanted to throw it out there. If you're thinking that Danny's got a wee bit of a dodgy voice, it's because he's suffering from a little bite of the cold. Isn't that right, Danny?
It's not the cold at all. I got the COVID.
Danny's got the Rona.
I done did. It's Rona time, folks. It's Rona.
Rona time.
I have it. It's, you know what? I'm glad I got it after I was vaccinated, because I would say it would probably be a lot worse. It's not great though, and also losing your sense of taste and smell when you're a big old food lover like me. Bad crack, folks.
You love your curries. You love your burgers.
I am mad about food, and we were supposed to be going to the Common Market the weekend past there, and we didn't even get. It's this like new food place in Belfast. It's supposed to be amazing. We were supposed to get going. Well, obviously we didn't, because we had to isolate. And we're like, right, okay, we'll definitely have to go up again. But see if I haven't regained my taste by the time we plan to go back up. Just not going to bother. What's the point of going somewhere for nice food if you can't even taste it?
I know.
It's basically like a mouthful of paper.
Oh,
Jesus. Fucking time.
Fucking hell.
But yeah, so I do apologise for if my voice seems a little lackluster.
I hope you've got a wee glass of water beside you there or something.
I don't even. I should. I was supping. I was shopping before I came on, but I've no shop water.
Yeah.
But sure.
So so that was just a wee pre-warning, just in case Danny has to like cough or whatever.
COVID's very real, folks.
While he's talking, but happily, talk away here, and thankfully, COVID is not transmissible through the TV screen. Oh Jesus, no! Here, we shouldn't even be joking about it. So anyway, you're on the mend anyway, so fair play to you.
Get in there. But
so,
anyway, starring watch movies.
Yes, starring Vincent Price and also starring Frank Lovejoy. But it also stars the debut feature film appearance from one Carolyn Jones. Do you know who that is, Danny?
No.
She played Kathy, the wee blonde girl in this.
Oh.
And she would go on to cement herself in the annals of TV history as one of the most memorable female characters of all time. She was the first version of this character, although there was a later version of this character which a lot of people would probably prefer, but she was the first version of this character, and she was part of a family.
Was she Morticia?
She was Morticia Addams.
Very
in the original Charles Addams version, the 60s version of the Addams Family, alongside John Aston. So she's amazing as Morticia. I know a lot of people prefer Angelica Houston. I just love the original Morticia, because I think I like that she's kind of petite, and I just like her features. She's got big eyes, and she's got, she's just got really nice features, and she is not in this film for very long. No. However, her scenes are true. She does turn up near the end. But she's quite annoying in this, actually, I thought.
She made me laugh so much. She went after
the wee laugh.
The wee laugh, and when he's just been found hanging, and she's like, was he not found dead? Yeah, he was such a card. I know. What the fuck? What way is that to react to somebody?
There was actually a funny line, and we shouldn't really laugh about it, but I thought it was funny. When she's talking to Kathy and her friend Sue, she's talking to her friend Sue, and she's talking about the new guy that she's dating, or that she's going out with, and Sue's like, "Oh, is he not? What's he like?" And she says something like, "Oh, he's okay if you know how to duck." And it's like, let's just throw a joke about domestic abuse in there, just for shits and giggles.
Yeah, it's one of those things. There's so many times, like, throughout this film, where just they say stuff like that there, or what was it? There's the line at the end.
It was the 50s. It's okay.
It was a different time.
This was actually not set in the 50s. It was set in the early 1900s. It was set, or the 1920s maybe. I'm not sure, but I know it was set before it was released anyway.
Yeah. But some of the humor, what was it? There was something about what was it? At the very end when they're like leaving, and one of them says something about, "Oh, you'll catch a cold," and your fella does a big sneeze, and it's just like,
know.
What the fuck? What the fuck is this humor about?
Why keep that in? It doesn't mean anything. It just maybe it sort of felt like, oh, we don't really know how to end this. We've had the climax. How do we end it? So they were just like, they sort of made a silly joke about sneezing. Weird.
Yeah.
And then she was like, without spoiling too much, she was like, "Thank you for putting your coat on me," because she's naked at the end of the film because when she nearly dies. And he was like, "Oh, it's fine. I didn't want anybody to see you." But he's like, yeah, because he's obviously seen her bush or whatever.
Seen her daddies.
Her wee daddies, and also a very early acting appearance from Mr. Charles Bronson. Did you know that was Charles Bronson?
No,
Igor.
I did not know that was Charles Bronson. I knew his face. It was one of those things I was watching. I was like, I know his face, but I couldn't think.
I know you're
a young Charles Bronson.
A yarn. Yarp. A young Charles Bronson, aka I think his real name's Charles.
It's what was it?
Bukensky or something.
And then it doesn't end with him, and they've got the model of his head.
Yeah.
And like by the time this head gets out of prison, he'll have a beard. And you're just like, all right.
Oh, haha, yay.
Cool.
Hilarious. You're such a hilarious policeman.
They always had to end on such a hilarious note, didn't they?
Yeah, so I thought it was, because I had actually seen this movie for the first time a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. And I remember sitting down watching it, blah, blah, blah. I was sort of looking at Igor going, I know his face. Obviously, he's wearing makeup and stuff, and he's sort of he's very theatrical looking.
He's very...
Looks like he's about to go out and do a dance on fucking Broadway or something, but you're kind of looking at him going, there's something about his face. I know his face. And then at the end of the film, I had to Google it or I had to IMDb it and be like, who the fuck was that guy, Igor? And I was like, Charles fucking Bronson. Of course it was.
Amazing.
Brilliant. Love it. So if you don't know what this is about, we spoiled a little bit there, but Vincent Price is a very talented wax sculptor. He has his own museum, and his partner is a businessman who's only in it for the money, and he wants to get out of it because it's not making a lot of money. And so he decides that he wants to burn it down for the insurance. Mm-hmm. And obviously Vincent Price is like, no, wise up, what are you doing? These are my children. And I love that whole start.
Vincent Price, his whole thing at the start with when he's kind of showing the art exhibitor around, they're trying to sell off the gallery first before they burn it down to an art exhibitor / investor.
He wants him to buy his partner out, basically.
Yeah, he wants him to buy his partner out, but he's like going around describing all the models and stuff. But the way he kind of talks about them, I was like, is there going to be some weird like magic element to them? Because he's like, oh, the amount of times I had to argue with John Wilkes Booth before he would sit in the right pose. And I was like, see if he's some sort of fucking conjures spirits of these dead people to make like the perfect waxwork model of them or something. That's not the case.
Or like a ventriloquist or something like that, where he sort of talks for them.
There'd be a different element to the film altogether if that had been the case. But it just turns out he's just a very eccentric artist. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was something I thought I was going to start going down that route, but it didn't. I went down the other route, which was arson.
Yeah, arson. I just love that whole start where he's talking to them as if he's his children, he knows who they are because he has conversations about them while he's working on them, I suppose, mm-hmm. or doing whatever. So as we said, it was released in 1953. Budget time, Danny.
Budget time, give us those figures. How much was it to record in early 3D?
It was only $1 million, which is actually quite a lot of money in 1953.
In those times, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you look at the film, you think, do you know what? There was some pretty decent set pieces in there, and Vincent Price probably wasn't the mega star that he would become in the set that later on, late 60s and 70s and stuff. But decent costumes, decent set pieces, yeah. Some pretty good effects. Obviously, the mask. Yeah. The prosthetics and all that stuff at the end probably would cost a lot of money, but $1 million. And do you want to know how much it made?
Much.
5.5 million.
Which again, I'm assuming for the time was a lot.
A lot of money. So
I wonder what that works out in today's money.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it works out today, but it was actually released many times over the years. It had some different re-releases over the years, and it actually made about 23 million altogether on all its theatrical releases. I think it was re-released in the 70s with a new cut or like a new version of it, and then again in like the 80s or 90s. So there was a couple of times that it was released, but it made 23 million altogether. But on its first initial release, it made 5.5 million, which 5 times its budget's always good.
It's a win. That's a win. Yep.
Fair play. We spoke about this being the first 3D film. The director DeTof wasn't a big fan of 3D. In fact, when he made the movie, he has an eye patch. He's blind in one eye. Right. So ironically,
you can't even see.
He can't see 3D. He has no depth
perception.
Yeah, depth perception, and so he was just kind of making it as a normal film. And legend has it that people would come in from Warner Brothers and be like, "Oh, how's the 3D aspect come?" Because obviously it was a bit of a gimmick, and he was like, "I don't know. I'm just making it as it is." And obviously there's a few. We spoke briefly about the 3D parts there, and there's a few other ones in there too, but they could have went balls out. And I think the fact that he was blind in one eye and that he couldn't see the 3D actually played out pretty well, because he made it more as a straight film with a couple of 3D parts in it, rather than like going balls out and just being like, this is every scene's going to have some sort of fucking thing coming at you, or something like that. So it actually worked out well for the film. And I think even though it is a 3D film, it's lasted so long, and you go back and you watch it now and you go, fuck, this is just great. Like, see, sometimes you go back and you watch those gimmicky films and you think, oh god, why is that person like pointing the cigarette at the screen for no fucking reason? Do you know what I mean? But the way they used it in this, I thought, was pretty clever.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it. As I said, there's just that one scene with the guy who's trying to get the people in, but even the fact that becomes almost like a joke within the film as well, being like, oh, your fella up there is real good. They must have paid a lot of money for him. I was like, ha! They actually, it felt like they were making a kind of joke out of their own thing. And then
doesn't he say something about, oh, the guy in the front row with the popcorn? He says something about the guy.
He turns to the camera and the fella, he's batting the ball, and he goes, and you there with the popcorn, and he's like, don't try to get that in your mouth. It's pretty good. Ooh, even though he ends up
bit of blue.
He ends up launching 3 balls into his
I know. Not the first time he's done that.
Yeah. All for you and Sonny about the ping pong, man.
Oh, Jesus.
It's, what do you call those?
I like paddle ball.
Paddle ball. That's it. Yeah. But yeah, actually, I really like that. I like those wee tricks and all.
There's a great. That was obviously probably the most obvious one.
Yeah.
And that actually comes after the intermission, which it worked really well, because that was whenever the new museum opened. So he's like the hype man.
Yeah.
And he's walking around going, come on in, people, come on in. And so it did actually work well. And the reason why there was an intermission in this was because it was a 3D film, and the reels, you had to divide the reels into 2. So they had to take that break so they could swap out the reels, which is quite interesting. But yeah, there's another part as well later where there's can-can dancers. And they're like shaking their arses, and they're like going really close to the screen.
Ruffles.
I know, and you're just like, what the fuck? Like, if that was 3D, imagine seeing that on the big screen.
Just ruffles everywhere.
Just a big hoop.
So many ruffles.
I know, class.
It was, but even that there is just like, when she's saying she's on the date with the fella, and she's saying, this is the first time I've ever been to a show like this. I don't know that I could ever show my undergarments. And you're just like, again, it seems like they're kind of pointing out the fact that these things are here within the narrative that maybe wouldn't always necessarily be here. I think, and I'm not sure if that was like a directorial choice to kind of be like, that all this kind of stuff in your face stuff is actually, it's not part of the characters' everyday lives. It's there added for a bit of flair, and these people are going to notice it just as much as you, the audience, notice it. Which again, I was kind of like, I don't know, that seems like a quite intentional thing, and quite a clever little nod from the director.
Yeah. So obviously we spoke about how Vincent Price, this kind of launched or relaunched his career, I suppose, revitalized his career, I suppose, as a leading man. He would go on to do loads of memorable films after this and become an absolute horror legend. But I love these old films, and I love whenever they start. You get the studio logo, and instantly the music hits, and it's just grand, and it's just so big, and it's just like you are watching a big fucking movie straight away. And I loved how a lot of these old films did that, and it just brought you in straight away. And so you get the kind of Warner Brothers logo with the big kind of orchestral sound, and then you cut to obviously you get the titles, which is amazing. I mean, these old movies always have amazing titles.
They always open. They basically open with the credits, because we don't get much of an end credit crawl. We just get like those opening credits, and that's really what we need. But I love the design. Let's talk about that opening font. Let's talk about the logo font, and then it's used again, the intermission font, the like bold,
the 3D
sort
font.
of goldy, like orangey goldy font that has those drips of wax along it. I was like, oh, that's nice. That's a nice font, because we all know how much I love talking about a good opening font.
We do love a nice title, movie title, don't we?
A nice title card, and this provides the goods on title cards. Yeah. House of Wax, 10 out of 10 title card.
Oh, 100%. I'd say most of those old movies, they're all the same. They all have those awesome, huge fonts, and
big bold fonts.
They just start so strong, and House of Wax actually maintains a lot of the good stuff as it goes on. So we basically cut to the small wax machine at the start, where Henry Jarrod is the owner, or the part owner, and we get that lovely sort of shot. It's just a nice wee slow shot throughout the museum, where you kind of get close-ups of all the different mannequins that he's made. I just think that's fucking creepy as fuck.
Yeah,
it's really ominous. It's really, like mannequins are terrifying.
Yeah, just creepy thing. I think it's the fact that you're always constantly like, is that thing gonna wake up? I don't know why, but when you walk past, even when walking past a mannequin in like a shop, you'd be like, is that gonna fucking bite me? I don't know why it bites the first time, but I just imagine like coming over.
It's that kind of thing where it's like, as the eyes follow me, which is weird, because later on in this, he speaks about how he creates the glass eyes and how they actually do follow you wherever you go.
The Anne Boleyn, and
I love that whenever the guy comes in, I can't remember the guy's name, the financer, the rich guy comes in, the critic, he's a critic, sorry, and Price is talking to him about all the different pieces that he's made, and he goes through the Wilt's booth and stuff, and he talks to him about, and he says how we had many conversations with him about all this and stuff, but then he sort of explains. It's kind of like a sort of very, very short mini version of how it's done, or how do we do this. So, which I think is really cool, because a lot of people back then wouldn't have really known how those models were made, and even now, like a lot of people, obviously they know they're mannequins and stuff, but just the detail that they go into, and he says about the hair and how he puts it in first, and then it kind of and then he says he does say about the eyeballs as well, or they're made from glass.
Hollow in the neck and brought up through, and
I just really like that. I just thought that was a real nice little thing to put in, because it kind of gives you a little bit more scope on the artistry behind what they're doing here, which they didn't really need to do, to be honest, but I liked it. I really liked it.
Yep. No, I think it's cool. It's very obvious that the people behind this do obviously have an attention for detail when it came to the mannequin, to the waxwork craft, and even the fact that they refer to like Madame Tussauds and stuff. And, it was just a very clear that it was a popular medium at the time. And I think people still always will have that curiosity. They'll see like advertised Waxworks Museum, or if you're in London you want to go check out Madame Tussauds, that sort of thing. Even the shitty ones are always good crack, because
I think sometimes the shittier the better, because it does kind of you you go to these museums, there's always like a chamber of horrors. There's always that sort of kind of aspect to it, and it's always been kind of very, very closely hand in hand with horror. And I assume it's because of this movie or certain movies over the years. There's another movie, Tourist Trap as well, which is it's a slasher, but there's sort of mannequins in that, and there's loads of sort of mannequin themed horror films that have been made over the years, and it's that whole idea of, I suppose it's a bit like the porcelain dummy as well, like Annabelle and that kind of thing, or Chucky, where it's 1 minute they're a doll and then the next minute their eyes move and you're just like, fuck, that's fucking really proper scary. Even to this day, it's fucking scary. But I know there's a lovely line that Price says in this when he's showing the guy about, and they're like sort of asking questions and stuff, and they're like, oh, what, do you speak to these guys, and trying to understand what he means when he's describing his process. And he says, to you they are wax, but to me, the creator, they live and breathe. What a fucking line. That just made me quiver. Like, I was like, oh, Vincent.
I genuinely see when he said that, that's when I was like, this is some fucking spooky shit. I was like, I genuinely believe either he had killed people or he was conjuring spirits or something. I was like, no, there's more to this. But it turns out not. It turns out that it wasn't until later on that there was more to it.
He's just a lovely man who loves his creations. What's wrong with that? There's nothing perverted or taboo about that.
He was definitely bucking them wax dolls.
Think so? Marie Antoinette was getting bent over a fucking in his basement. I wonder how much detail he put into it though. Interesting. But yeah, also when he's sort of talking about, he's describing, the details, the process and stuff. It's a nice wee sort of foreshadow as well into what might happen later on. So he talks about Joan of Arc, and obviously she got burnt at the stake and stuff, and she does get burnt 5 minutes after this, as do they all. And then he talks about Marie Antoinette and how she's like the perfect vision. She's like his kind of masterpiece, and then that obviously becomes the kind of towards the climax of the film. That becomes a very important aspect of the film. So the film kicks off. This is basically when the film kicks off. Whenever his mate, who's a cunt, what's his name? Burke. Is it Burke?
Something like.
I think it's Burke. He's basically like a partner who wants to get out because he's a money man. He's not making enough money and he wants to invest it somewhere else. So he wants to burn it down. But it goes from 0 to fucking 50 really quickly, doesn't it?
They start like scrapping. He's just like, come on, we're burning it down. And Vincent's like, nah, but. And then they're just like, put him up.
I know, but it's just crazy because he's just like, oh, how would you like to make 25 grand or half of 25 grand?
No.
And then all of a sudden he's got the matches out and he's like, what the fuck? And he's burning the skirts and it just goes all fucking tits up from there.
It'll go up like a paint house.
I know. But the silly fighting, man, I love it. I love in these old films, like the fighting's really over the top, sort of like, whoosh, whoosh, big right hooks and fucking everything, and they're like punching from away over here, and I just love it. I love all that silly fighting, and it's great. And Vincent Price is a big dude. He would take that guy no bother.
Yeah,
but he was struggling. Your man must have fucking been a wee boxer when he was young, because he was giving out the wee fucking jabs and stuff.
Giving out the digs.
I don't know, wee Golden Gloves champion or something. Also, I don't know if you noticed, but there was my mic's just falling a little bit there. I don't know if you've noticed, but whenever the fire starts going up, and you're seeing all the dummies get burnt and stuff, which is fucking terrifying. Like that's really a scary image. There was one that looked like Ian McKellen, and it made me sad.
I never even noticed.
There was one that had sort of wee small spectacles, but he kind of looked like Ian McKellen. I was like, oh, that's kind of sad.
I must go back and see if I can find the frame.
I don't know who the mannequin was. What historical figure he was. Maybe he was just like a random person. But I thought it was funny.
McKellen just said that.
I know.
Melton.
And also, as in my research for this, I was reading a little bit about it, and I found out that fire scene, which is, that's a fucking big stunt. Like there was a lot of fire there, and obviously, you know, the stuntmen were coming in because you know, the fight sequence and stuff. They were getting fairly close to some of the flames, but the fire got out of control, and that part where Price goes back into his little sort of basement area, his wee sort of private area, and the flames are going everywhere, but he goes back into it, and he's about to get the wee bowl of water, which what the fuck's a bowl of water going to do? Yeah. And then Burt comes at him. Apparently, in that scene, Price singed his eyebrows. So he singed his fucking eyebrows because the flames were quite close to his face, and actually it got out of control. But they couldn't cut because they had to get the footage, you know, and that's why there's so much footage throughout that whole sequence of just a random mannequin burning, because they had to sort of kind of use splices,
filming it, keep filming and the whole burning,
just kind of cutting it into the scene and stuff. But so it was quite a dangerous scene to film, I think. So obviously there was a lot of money pumped into that.
At least it was only singed eyebrows that they got away with, you know.
His beard was fine, you know, his wee mustache was grand.
But those frizzle just...
I know. Maybe that's why his hair was grey when he came back later on.
Because he was cooked.
I know. Cooked.
Pure cooked, lad.
Off his fucking tits, so he was. That's what he was. You would be if your hands were all burnt up and your face was all mangled.
Poor burnt
I know.
hands.
But so obviously the museum burns down and he dies.
Poor Vincent dies, yeah. He's gone too.
Professor Jarrod dies with his children, you know. And your man Burke, like, literally murders him because he just leaves him for dead, doesn't he? Yeah.
He's just kind of like, oh, my poor friend, he was so talented, but place went up like a paint house.
I know.
The fact that he's so blasé about it at dinner with his missus, he's just like, well, it was what it was, but hey, I got the money in my bank right now.
He got the fucking money anyway, the bastard.
Even though he's kind of like, it was a bit of a struggle because they couldn't find a body and you have to have proof of death.
Yes. Oh, that was the the first plot point is that there was no body found. So, oh God, what happened to the body? No skeletons or teeth or anything found.
Not a thing.
Something strange is going on here. But I love how obviously after that Burke he has that wee scene with Kathy, and then he goes back to his apartment, and then he's doing something in his fucking typewriter or something, or he's filing some books or something.
He's getting putting the money away, or so he's got the money from his safe.
That's what he's
putting away in an envelope and all, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, a disfigured man approaches from behind the fucking desk.
It's not a seat like you see one of the wall panels like shift to the side, and he's just like, huh? He peeps out from behind the sofa.
I just love that image of the mask, the prosthetic mask. You know, it's iconic.
Yep.
But I will say they maybe should have like sort of teased it a wee bit first, because it literally just cuts and he just like comes in. Like
he's just there, like,
and you're like, why not like tease, you know, a bit of a shadow first or something, and then, you know, reveal the face from the shadow. But maybe it was more shocking to do it just like sort of like, oh
yeah, maybe they probably didn't need suspense as much then.
No, but the mask is great. I love the mask and
the costume as well.
The costume,
which we have alluded to. The mask and the costume are very, very, very much an influence for Sam Raimi's Darkman.
Yes. Big Darkman.
Straight up, like, you can just see obviously the whole idea of like the burn victim who's wearing this massive like trench overcoat and the big wide brim hat. I was like, fucking hell, that's Darkman. That's fucking Darkman.
Yeah, definitely. No, 100%. It was, you know, Darkman was taken from House of Wax, and, you know, on our Darkman episode, which you can go back and check up in the link above or in the description somewhere. Which I think was that way back in season 1 we talked about Darkman.
Darkman was season 1.
It was. Wow, fuck me, it feels like ages ago. So, well, that was a great episode. Yeah, so Darkman, obviously, yes, Sam Raimi's character was hugely influenced from Vincent Price's House of Wax character, and obviously in that episode we spoke a little bit about, you know, the Invisible Man and, you know, the idea of Frankenstein and, you know, Beauty and the Beast and all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of influence in there, but visually, definitely House of Wax.
House of Wax, 100%. Like, okay, I'd never seen this film before. But as soon as I seen that character, I was like, hey.
Peyton, what's his name? Peyton. What's Liam Neeson's name? It's definitely Peyton, wasn't it? Fuck, I can't remember his surname.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
It was like one of the most American names ever. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. I can't remember the surname, but it was definitely Peyton, I want to say. Played by Liam Neeson, who's from Ballymena, boy.
Ballymena, hi. That's a Ballymena man.
Big Ballymena, boy. You're looking up, aren't you?
I'm looking up because it's going to annoy me that I can't remember.
It's going to annoy me too. I think it's Peyton.
A few moments later.
Peyton Westlake.
That's the one.
Peyton Westlake.
Dr. Peyton Westlake?
Dr. Peyton Westlake. Yes. But
yes.
Yeah, they're all similar origin stories, except there's nothing to suggest that our House of Wax protagonist has super strength.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't have super strength. He's got other super abilities, like he's wild good with his hands.
It's wild good, even though he's not good with his hands, but he is good with his hands, but he's not good with his hands.
Yeah. And he's a wee sort of like Quasimodo boy as well when he runs after the girl.
Shuffles when he's running after the girl, but then when he's like, it's when he's got your other fella. So obviously he sneaks into your boy's office. That's where we got to, and then he has a bit of a tussle with him, but manages to knock him out. Manages to knock him the fuck out, and then he like walks him out into the hallway on his back, but he's managed to like fully drape him over his back. And he's just like, and then he takes him to the elevator shaft.
Maybe he does have a wee bit of super strength in him because he couldn't beat him in a fight earlier.
Yeah, but now he's
was
filled
easily
with revenge rage.
Rage.
Yeah. He's filled with revenge rage for his lost wax children, and Mary Antoinette wax wife, and and so he's decided he's gonna make
wax
this guy's
butthole
death waxy butthole. Jesus. But yeah, he decides that he's gonna make it look like a suicide, so he throws your man down the elevator shaft.
Here, that was brutal.
Man. Rope. That was pretty. It's the fact that your wee woman, the wee cleaning lady's like wiping the stairs, and she just hears the clatter, and he's just like,
that man. Yes, that was very brutal. I'd forgotten about that. I'd forgotten that he made it look like a suicide, or as they say later on, suicide.
A suicide.
I don't know if he caught that later on, but he says something later on when he's opened the new museum, and he said, "Was it murder or was it suicide?"
So is suicide.
It reminded me of an episode of Bottom where Rick Mail says the exact same thing. I don't know if he got it from this, but just reminded me of that. But yeah, when he throws him down and he just clatters down, he's just fucking hanging.
Yeah.
And then the wee lady's like, "Ooh."
Yeah, she just fills on that big scream over, and then it cuts to his partner Kathy and oh god, what do you call her? The other one? Sue, Kathy and Sue having a chat and just being so blasé about the fact that this man's just committed suicide. But well, he's such a card. He's such a card.
But you know, she's not a likable character. Like, she's funny and she's nice and she's all, you know, a pretty girl or whatever, but she's not likable. And see the size of her waist. Man, I could have put my fucking hand around her waist.
When she's like tighter and Sue's just like, "Are you sure?" Just like, "Tighter, I want to look like whoever the movie star that she references is." But yeah.
So she gets it as well. She gets killed as well. So
he ends up he's in a bit of a rampage. So he's sort of just going around. Anybody that's associated with anybody's getting whacked.
I know. Or waxed. Ooh.
Waxed. Oh.
So he kills Kathy as well, and obviously Kathy and Sue are friends. They live in the same sort of building or whatever. And Sue goes back to her apartment and she sees Kathy's body.
Yep.
And then she sees the man, the monster, the mask.
Man.
Let's just call him no, it would be unfair to call him Darkman.
Proto-Darkman?
Proto-Darkman. Let's call him that.
Proto-Darkman.
So she sees him and then she screams. And there's a great fucking scene next where the people that were downstairs come out of the room and they're all like, "Oh." And the man's like, "The scream, it came up from there, I tell you." And then the brilliant acting, like proper Academy Award winning acting there. And then the lady's like, okay, let's look into it. And you're just like, fuck me. Like a woman screamed and you're just at the bottom of the stairs, so
we will
blasé.
do what we will have to do. And it will be done.
And it will be done. I know. So, I meant to actually say that the mask, the prosthetics, was so terrifying at the time to the other cast members that some of them were actually sick. Some of them were physically sick. And when the Warner Brothers executives came on set, one of the executives was like sick as well or he fainted or something, or he passed out or something, because they were so shocked at how like amazing the mask was.
We've never seen a man with a burned face before.
Like,
oh God!
I know, fuck's sake. But it is pretty terrifying. You can imagine back in the early 50s seeing that.
1950. Like, well, you sort of think about it, like 53.
Suppose there has been a lot of stuff happen.
Like war and stuff.
World War II
had been a thing, and there was bound to be people who had come back from like those conflicts with injuries that were probably not dissimilar to what was on his face. And it's still like, my sensibilities.
That doesn't affect rich Warner Brothers executives. They don't know about that. They don't know.
We don't have to associate with veterans.
They probably didn't even know the fucking war was happening, except when the movies.
We're in here in Hollywood making entertainment for the boys, so we don't have to look at them. So
Darkman starts chasing Sue through the streets. Proto-Darkman, apologies. Starts chasing Sue through the streets. This was actually a cool scene as well. I kind of liked the girl that played Sue. I thought she was quite a good actress. And she was played by Phyllis Kirk. And she didn't want the role. So she was offered the role. I assume she read a script, blah, blah, blah. She was a working actress, so, you would imagine that she would want to do a film like this, but she didn't want the role of this character named Sue Allen. But because she was under contract by Warner Brothers, I think she had to make a certain amount of films, 5 or 6 films, I don't know, maybe 10 films a year. Back in those days, it was completely different to what it is like today. You sort of signed a contract for a studio and you worked exclusively for that studio. And then the studio banged out, fucking 50 films or whatever a year, or something silly. But, they reused sets and all that sort of shit. But she didn't want the role, and then she did it. And years later, she was sort of getting interviewed. I think she said that she thought it was a fucking stupid film and blah, blah, blah. But she is glad she did it because, it was good work. And obviously she got to work with Vincent Price, and it's kind of one of those films that is, it's famous. Yeah, it stood the test of time. And I think she enjoyed her work in the film, and she enjoyed the film after it was released, and she was glad that she did it. But she's a great actress, and she's really good in this film.
I really enjoyed her in this. I think when she's sort of doing her own like investigating and stuff, and there's especially that one scene where she goes up and she's like scratching the wax face on the Joan of Arc, and I just thought, I was like, that seems like such a like genuine thing you would do if you thought your friend, if you thought your friend was encased below the wax.
I think what I liked about her was she wasn't so over the top.
No, exactly. Yeah, she's the most genuine.
She's sort of her performance in this, and I don't know what else she's done. I don't remember ever sort of seeing her in other things. I may have, but in this film, it seems like her performance was a little bit ahead of its time, a little bit in that sense, where she was kind of a wee bit more subdued instead of being, because a lot of films around this time, they'd be, as you said at the start of this, a wee bit over the top, a wee bit campy, in how they expressed their, facials and stuff like that, where she was kind of sort of laid back a little bit more. But that was that scene where she kind of puts 2 and 2 together, and she finds out that the Joan of Arc is Kathy. That was a great scene. Yeah, excellent scene.
Really good scene.
But in this scene where she's getting chased by Pro-Darkman.
Pro-Darkman.
Fuck me, that's cracking me up. And he's fucking he's limping. And then she takes her shoes off because she doesn't want to make noise, obviously. And then she goes into her friend's house. This is where we meet your man. Sheen? What's the guy called? Fuck, I can't remember his name. I want to say it was Sam. Anyway, there's another guy who she knows, and obviously they form a relationship from this point onwards. And then that's when she explains about proto-Darkman and his face. And then they're like, no human would ever have a face like that.
Who could possibly have a bird face after the war?
I know.
Nobody ever.
Jesus Christ, man. Like, fuck me.
His name is Scott Andrews.
Scott. I knew it was an S.
Scott Andrews.
I was pretty close when I said Sam or Sheen.
Yeah.
There is a Sheen. I think one of the cops is called Sheen.
They're Jim Sheen.
Jim Sheen, yeah. Is there a Sam? There's got to be a Sam, surely.
There is no Sams.
Fucks.
There's a Sydney Wallace.
That's what I meant. What I meant, yeah.
There's Sydney Wallace.
So things start getting out of hand whenever the bodies start disappearing from the morgue. I love that scene when the two guys bring the Kathy's body into the morgue, and they're having just a random chat about random shit. And then when they go into the morgue, it sort of reminded me a little bit of Reanimator, because all the dead bodies are sitting around. It's sort of that shot from Reanimator whenever they first go in to the morgue, and then one of them pops up. And they're like, "Oh, that happens all the time."
They're just
like, the embalming fluid.
It's the embalming fluid. It makes them jump up like that sometimes.
I know, but it was kind of a nice scene because it's sort of a little bit of a red herring, because you sort of think, "Oh, maybe that's proto-Darkman."
Yeah.
And why are they not checking to see who that is? And they push him back down, and then they leave, and then it scans over, and then another body rises, and you think for a second you're like, "Bloody embalming fluid," but no, this is actually. Price, burnt face, proto-Darkman.
Burnt face man.
Yeah. And also, one thing I did notice about this film, and you see it a lot with all these old films, all the fucking cops are cunts.
They're all kind of too sure of themselves, like pure cocksure guys who are just like, we're sure that would never happen. That's absurd. But we'll go check it out. But only because we're men and we want to be right.
Like not even just that, but just they have no empathy.
No.
Like they're interviewing this girl Sue, and she's sort of like, "Oh, blah blah blah, this happened or whatever," and they're like, "Oh yeah, go back, you'll be fine." And just zero fucking empathy. Mr. Know-All. I mean, all cops content anyway, but
because I was having a look there to see the names of the characters, and Jim Shane, Sergeant Jim Shane, the right-hand cop, the one who makes the stupid sneeze joke at the end. He is played by an actor called Dabs Greer, who you may also know as Old Man Tom Hanks in The Green Mile.
Oh, that's who he is. Awesome.
Yeah. So I thought, just looking there, I was like, I do know his little old face. Because I fucking love The Green Mile. But yeah, that's him.
This is when we find out that Henry Jarrod has survived.
Oh.
He did not burn to death in the museum.
But he's also surprisingly okay.
He's surprisingly...
For a man who's involved in a fire. His hands are fucked.
He's got burny hands, and he's in a wheelchair, man. Come on.
He's in a wheelchair. Yeah, but I mean...
And he's got grey hair, for God's sake.
He could be dead. That's the worst outcome of being in a fire. Burnt hands and a wheelchair.
He's got a singed eyebrow.
And his eyebrow. Those were real. That was genuine, folks.
Genuine
effects.
So he comes back, and he's a wee bit of a grey fox, and he's in a wheelchair. And by the way, I'm just going to throw out there, I don't give a fuck. Vincent Price is hot as fuck.
Do you want to take a wee ride in his wheelchair?
Man, see if I was back in the day, he would have turned me. He would definitely would. If I had seen him, I would have definitely had thoughts, and I would have been thinking, "Fuck, I've got weird thoughts I haven't had before." I know. See those eyes? Jesus.
Mustache.
I'm getting weak at the knees. Come on, that mustache, man. I actually have been thinking about maybe getting the old beard trimmed and doing the wee sort of pricey up here and getting the mustache going. So
do it for All Hallows Eve. Do Vincent Price for Halloween?
Maybe. Maybe, or maybe I'll wait and start at season 5.
Season
No,
5,
we'll see.
Vincent Price looking, you could be like, "Hello, welcome
We'll see.
to Monday Night Frights."
What are you going to do though? If I do Vincent Price and the mustache, what are you going to do?
I'll do a little Igor character. Yes, master.
But you'll just be mute. Oh, Igor from Frankenstein's Igor, you mean?
Just a general Frankenstein.
Just generic.
Just generic Frankenstein.
Yes, master.
Hey, master.
Welcome to Monday Night Frights with me, master.
You could. That's Kermit the Frog for fuck's sake.
Oh, fuck! I could do Kermit the Frog with you.
I know. You could do that. I thought you were going to do fucking Renfield.
Hello,
I
master.
could do Renfield. That would be a good one.
I will tell you everything, master.
Master. Eating your fucking flies and all.
With the wee long.
You wouldn't be able to taste them though.
Ah, fuck!
Well, you might be by that stage.
Succulent little taste of protein.
Hello. Oh fuck. So yeah, so Vincent Price is back as Henry Jarrod. He's in a wheelchair. He looks gorgeous.
He's got burnt hands.
He's got burnt hands, so he's got a
Fix
couple
your
of,
face, burnt
he's-
hands.
he's got a couple of assistants because he can't use his fingers anymore.
He's got Igor, who is played by Charles Bronson, as we found out earlier.
Yeah.
And he's also got another fella who I can't remember the name of right
His
now.
name's Leon.
Yes.
Who actually, I have a little fact about him too.
Who?
I want to say he was played by a guy called Nedrick Young,
Nedrick, yeah.
who, if you go onto IMDb
Mhm.
to find the cast, now he's not a main character, but he
He still has a part to play.
he's definitely part of the cast. He's not like
lines, yeah,
he's
he's
not
got
additional.
dialogue.
He's not an extra. If you go onto IMDb, you will not find Nedrick Young as part of this cast. Do you want to know why?
Why?
Ooh, politics, Danny. Politics. Hollywood politics. He was blacklisted.
Communism.
Marxism.
Marxism.
So he was accused of being a Marxist sympathizer. And I don't know all the details surrounding this, by the way, other than that fact. And
Yeah.
he was basically blacklisted by Hollywood, and he was uncredited in this film. So I don't know if he was officially uncredited, i.e., he didn't get any sort of pay, or afterwards didn't get any sort of paychecks, from any sort of whatever. But he was blacklisted, and I'm unsure about other films that he did. But I know that he's uncredited because I went onto IMDb specifically to get his name. I was like, hang on, why is this guy not here? Like he's the other assistant. So I had to sort of do a quick Google search, and I found out, he got blacklisted. So I don't know if he was a Marxist sympathizer. I just know he was accused of it.
Accused of. Oh, okay.
And the fact that he was accused of it kind of,
that was enough of a black.
Do you know what? It was like being a witch back in the 1600s. If you get accused of it, you're just, that's it.
That's it. If you got associated with communism or Marxism in any way, then
That's
get out of here.
because it was after World War
After
II
Europe.
and America and all that sort of stuff. So, but anyway, so he does actually play quite an important role in this film.
Yeah, his whole thing, and when they kind of, because that's when the police actually start to do proper police work, is when they kind of twig on. They're like, "Hey, I know that guy's face from somewhere." Yeah, and then they end up figuring it out that he's a convicted killer.
Mhm.
Um,
And he's also a wee bit of an alky.
oh, he loves about that.
He loves the hot sauce.
Mm.
But so new museum opens, intermission, paddle boy,
Probably like
balls in the
he's
mouth.
got like a swing. That's the wee,
What was that?
That's the wee ball swinging the triangle. He makes a wee triangle and he swings the ball through it.
I thought you were doing something else there.
No, he's swinging a wee triangle for your ball.
Oh,
wee
for
ball
fuck's
through the
sake.
triangle. He makes a triangle with strings and he makes the ball go through.
Oh, aye. And then the best part is when he does it and it goes behind him towards the screen. That was a really good trick. But
And
see,
then he
if you
just
go,
starts like firing at those girls. He's just
if you
like,
go
"What
and
was that?"
if you go and rewatch this, and watch the extras that he's doing it to, like they genuinely are like, get away, like because he's proper like doing it.
He's
So
belting it, yeah.
like that's not like they're definitely there. So and then they're sort of nervous laughing. You can tell. And there's one girl at the end where she's just like, aye, funny.
Well,
But fucking hell, it was hilarious.
he's proper just belting it, and you can hear the fucking of it. It's
he must have been a professional paddle baller,
ball slapper.
He must have been in a circus or something. Must have
had to have been. It's the fact that he's got like the two going at the one time, and then he's like launching like three of them into his own mouth, and absurd.
But we get an awesome scene whenever we go into the new museum, and Wheelchair Jarrod is taking a wee group of people around. He's obviously doing that sort of thing that he did at the start, which I love. He's telling a little bit about the exhibitions, and he shows off Lincoln and stuff like that. And
he says it's the bit when there's like a caveman dragging off a cave woman, and he was like, and ladies, this is how your husband would have taken you across the threshold back in the days of Neolithic man.
I know. He's just grabbing her by the hair, just pulling her up, and she's like, "Oh, all right, fucking hell,
sure, big lad, let's go."
I know, let's go. Great, best night of my life. Here we go. So, and then that's where Sue sees Joan of Arc, and the famous sort of pose that she's in, and what a great scene. She sees her, and you're just like, and also it's a great scene for us as well because it takes a wee second. It's kind of subtle. It's not like, oh my god, that's, you wouldn't necessarily think, but as she gets closer and realization starts sinking into her and her eyes get bigger and she's like, oh my god, then we start going, oh my god, that her mate? That looks like her mate. And then the whole story starts to go because you see Burke as well. And it's basically Burke behind the elevator shaft, which kind of looks like a prison.
I love the way it's framed like that.
Yeah,
where it's because it's the old school like pull away fence sort of gates that open up the elevators, and just the way they've got that circle frame in the middle of it, which just perfectly like encapsulates his face. Just lovely framing. And I think this film does actually quite a few times has some like nice shots, but I just thought when they were like showing that particular one off, and it's just like perfectly captured with his face in the center of it, I was like, oh, that's nice.
And everyone's up looking at him going, oh, hi, I can't believe how realistic that looks. And he's basically, he does have a wee bit of makeup, like, but it's your man. Like,
it's the real deal.
I know. And then Sue starts, obviously, I think doesn't she mention something about, oh, this looks so much like Kathy that it's kind of suspicious. And Vincent Price, he overhears her and he's like, oh, yes, I saw her face in the paper. And that's fine then. If he saw her face in the paper, like, we don't need to investigate anymore, that's fine.
Who would believe a suspicious woman anyway? I know. Because if Vincent Price says it's all right, well,
if a man says something and a woman says something that is an argument, we're obviously going to believe the man because it's the 50s.
And plus, he's a genius sculptor who has bright hands. But he's telling other people how to do it, so it's fine.
It's grand. But so she goes back. So this is around the time when sort of the investigation doesn't start properly, but there is a few sort of like she kind of starts thinking, right, hang on, something's weird here. And I mean, it would be kind of weird anyway whenever two bodies have gone missing. Yeah. You would sort of think, you would start to put two and two together and think, hang on, what's going on here? We've had a few bodies go missing that strangely look like people are in this wax museum.
Yeah, it's the when the police are kind of going along and they're like looking at them and they look at the John Wilkes Booth and they're like, if I do this, and he like covers up the mustache and he's like, does that not look like your guy from? And he's like,
I love that part, man. And it's quite subtle though, other than that part, because he says something like, oh sure, the caveman looks like Chief or whatever, and it's kind of a bit of a throwaway line, but then you're kind of thinking, hang on, that's 4 people now. And he mentions somebody else as well. And you're kind of thinking, fuck, there's other people that are dead or have gone missing or are on holiday or something that are actually in this museum as well. It's not just these 2 characters that we know of. Yeah. I love it. And then what about that scene that was what's in the box?
Yeah.
What's in the box?
What's in the box?
And it's your head, love. It's your head. Look, there you go. There's a present.
We're just working on. What was it? They want her to be the new Anne Boleyn. And he's like, Marie Antoinette. I do apologize. They're not making. They were making. Oh no, there was an Anne Boleyn made in the new museum, and she gets her head taken off. Yes,
he says a great line there as well, where he's like, Henry VIII had a shortcut for divorce.
Oh, like that's it. Yes, Henry VIII created the shortcut for divorce. Yeah, which again, Cracker, he's just going along.
Doesn't get any laughs. So
Cracker one-liners. I know it's too morbid. People could not laugh at morbid humor like that.
He's only trying to make a joke here.
It was a different time. Burnt faces were too scary, and people didn't like morbid humor.
Fuck me. So anyway, Head in a Box. David Fincher obviously loved this movie, and so he wants her to obviously be his Marie Antoinette, and she's like, okay, whatever. So she's meeting. So her beau, who is Sheen, not Sheen Scott, is now working for Vincent Price, and the other two guys are still there as well. And then just before this, so the cops take in your man because they recognize the face.
They realize, they recognize his face. They're like, oh, if you took away the muff. That's what he say. He's got like goatee,
the whiskers.
If you took away the muff, wouldn't that be? And then they end up finding out. They find his police record basically, which says he was put away for murder, but he was an artistic genius when he was locked away.
He painted the Last Supper in the cell.
That's right. He painted the Last Supper in his cell wall. And
class.
He was an artistic genius. Which I mean, you're just like fair play. Okay, some nice exposition there to fill us in on what the crack is. But good.
Yeah, also like a nice little sort of twist, and not really a subplot because it affects the main plot, but I just thought it was kind of nice that they went through a different character and they had history with that character as well.
Yeah. It wasn't just sort of a meaningless throwaway goon.
Exactly.
Exactly. Unlike Igor, who is just like, it's just like this mute brute, a mute brute. But yeah, and they basically end up teasing him with alcohol until he reveals the secrets. They're just like, come on, you want a little whiskey? Tell us what you know.
You know what? I watched a film the other night, Dick Tracy, starring Warren Beatty.
I haven't seen it.
It was directed by Warren Beatty as well. I loved it. It was out in 1990. And I had a lot of the toys as well. It was probably the toys that got me into it first before I'd even seen the film. But really ridiculous movie, but I absolutely love it. You would love it actually because it's based on
seeing all the practical effects.
It's based on obviously the comic strip, and it's very reminiscent of like sort of like The Mask or Who Framed Roger Rabbit, that kind of cartoony. Matte paintings in the background and all that sort of stuff. And even like the likes of Batman and Batman Forever and stuff. But there's a scene in it, and I know I'm going off a wee bit here, but there's a scene where he's trying to get something out of a character called Mumbles, which is played by Dustin Hoffman in amazing prosthetics. And Mumbles is like, he needs a drink, because he's got a wild dry mouth, and that's why he mumbles. So he's like got the water and he's like, just drinking it really slowly, and he's like, "Oh, do you want some water?" Mumbles is like, but it just reminded me exactly of the scene because the cops pouring the whiskey really slow into the glass, and the guy's like looking at it and just like, it's just hilarious that he reveals the whole story just because he was gagging for a drink.
Because he'd love a wee whiskey.
He just needed a wee fucking tipple.
Cheers, just a wee dram, boy.
Brilliant. So he obviously reveals to the cops and to us as well the whole story that we kind of already knew anyway, that this man has killed for the purpose of using the corpses as mannequins. And it's fucking great because this is happening at the same time where Sue is going to meet Scott at the new museum because he's supposed to get off, and it's quite late at night, and she can't see him, so she goes into the museum, and our Igor's following her about being creepy, and then we get that fucking amazing scene where she walks by a row of heads and one of them's Igor. That's class. And he's like, and eventually she obviously gets kidnapped. She meets first of all she goes to see Joan of Arc, and she pulls the hair off and she realizes, fuck, it is definitely Kathy because it's the blonde hair underneath. But you kind of think, would he not have maybe got rid of the hair.
Taking the hair out and replaced
You know what I
it.
mean?
But
I probably would have went that distance. If I was going to kill somebody, I would shave her fucking head. Do you know what I mean?
it's, you know what? It's because Vincent Boy didn't do it himself. He left it to the
couldn't
to
use
the
his
other- to
fingers.
the drunk, and yeah, exactly.
Fucking could he couldn't
Can't get the help.
couldn't use the razor because his fingers are all fucking burnt.
He's like, where are my burnt hands?
So anyway, and he's like, you shouldn't have done that. And then she goes up to slap him, and we get that fucking amazing reveal of the fact that his face
falls away.
Yeah, is actually a wax mask, and he's the proto-Darkman, which we already knew, basically. But this is the actual revelation of the climax of the story, and it's amazing. I love it. I love that whole reveal because when I first watched it, because I'll be honest, like I knew a little bit about the film when I first watched it a couple of years ago, and obviously I knew that proto-Darkman was Vincent Price, but I was trying to figure out how the fuck's he, is that a mask? Is he wearing a burnt mask? Because he's playing a burnt man type thing, which is the whole, kind of a red herring. And then you realize, no, the mask is his actual face, and the burnt face is his real face. What a great reveal. Yeah, and she does that amazing scream. Brilliant acting from her, as usual. And then he's like, right, you're getting done here. And he whips her clothes off.
He knocks her out, strips her down, puts her in the coffin box thing, and places her below his giant wax chemistry kit, which again is fantastic because we kind of get to see it earlier on, like when he's first reopened the museum. He's showing his investor around the new waxworks, and you get to see how he cases the bodies in wax and stuff, and there's all these big tubes that are bubbling away and got the big bubbling vat of wax, and it's a really cool kind of setup. It is almost evil lab-esque, but it's actually just a waxworks.
It does turn into a wee bit sort of mad scientist at the end, doesn't it? A little bit.
When he's turning all the knobs to obviously get the wax boiling. Turn your knob to get the wax boiling, boys.
Obviously, if you've got a mad scientist and you've got an assistant, then that assistant has to be called Igor.
Has to be called Igor, yeah.
Because that's the rules.
And Igor either doesn't speak, or if he does speak,
he speaks like this.
He speaks like that.
Yes, master.
Like Peter Lorre or something like that. That fucking weird voice. Amazing. But yeah, so Igor's going to kill Scott, and he goes to use the guillotine. Yep. He takes fucking ages getting the guillotine sword. For fuck's sake, you think he'd know what he's doing? Like, he's only done this like a million times with fucking mannequins, but he takes pure ages, and then the cops come in, knock him out the fuck, and obviously they find Alsu in the buff, and Vincent.
At least
Price,
he's being a spoopy boy.
He's about to drop the wax. He's like, "Oh, here we go," and the police come in and get him just in time. Thankfully, they get her out just in time, and then this big fight happens. And then we also get like a wee sort of scene where he runs up to sort of the top of the stairs, and you think, "Oh, what's going to happen here?" I wonder.
What could possibly.
He's going to do the old Jack from the original Batman, maybe, where he topples over and falls into a big tub of wax or acid. It was in Batman, but in this it's wax, obviously.
Yep.
And he falls into it, and then she gets out just in time, and she's saved, and the world is right.
Happy days. And then we get some shitey man jokes to finish the whole thing off.
Really shite cop man jokes.
Really shitey cop man jokes to finish. You know what I would really like to finish off if it had been myself, if it had been me who was doing the directing, I would have had them like lifting Vincent Price out of the big wax vat, and then his like encased sort of
winking at the camera.
Encased face and all.
Oh, okay, I thought you were going to say something else. Or do you know what would have been class? If they went to pull him out, and at the very end there was one last scare, as there should always be in every single horror movie ever made, and he just jumps at the camera, 3D, and he's all like, ooh,
waxing
lyrical at the camera. Yeah, we got that in there.
We did it, yeah.
At the start of this, we were like, how can we get this in here? And we got it in, so fuck you. Happy days. But also, when Sue was in the buff, she was about to get waxed. There you go. But
bikini or otherwise.
Thankfully, the cop came along, and as was revealed in the very last scene, he draped his jacket over, and
which again
covered her up.
I thought was quite a nice moment, like because he kind of rushes in, he sees her, and he goes, oh, puts the jacket on her. I was like, that's quite nice, and that seems like quite a forward-thinking, nice cop thing to do. But then they start making comments about it, and I was like, oh, you fucking ruined it.
I know.
You ruined that nice thing you did by being a bit of a meh about it.
And then the other cop sneezes and gives everyone COVID.
It gives everybody COVID.
I know. So they're all fucking. They're all like you. They're all fucking.
They're all just tasteless bastards.
I know. They're like, fuck's sake, what are we eating tonight? Doesn't matter because we can't taste it.
Everything tastes like paper.
I know. Fuck. Anyway, brilliant film. I love House of Wax. Please go and watch more Vincent Price's films if you can. House on Haunted Hill is great. Watch his Corman stuff. Really over the top, like The Raven's amazing. It's got Peter Lorre in it as well. And,
what else would you guys recommend? Let me know in the comments below what other Vincent Price movies I should go watch.
Tell Danny what Vincent Price movies he should watch next. I've given a few there, and there's loads more, obviously. Lots and lots of classics. Like there's, man, you could name probably 15, 20 films that are considered Vincent Price classics.
Are they Vincent Priceless?
Oh, Danny. That's legendary. That is legendary. But anyway, we weren't even supposed to do this episode this week, so we had to call an audible, and we're going to do this episode next week. However, we had to swap the episodes, so
yeah, we'll swap them around.
Yes, but we swapped them around.
There's exciting stuff coming next week.
There's good stuff coming. Overall, House of Wax, what did you think of it?
I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun watching it. I love going back and visiting those kind of old timey movies because whilst they may seem outdated in like some of the humor and technique and stuff, there's always some particular element of charm that always appeals to me. And I definitely think, like as I said, Vincent Price and just the general sort of aesthetic of the whole thing, and then also the fact that we can see other influences that this has then had on films that we love, such as Darkman.
Aye, that scene where he's chasing her through the streets, like that was just lovely. I loved all that shit. And the sort of jacket, the sort of cape, it was kind of flowy. It wasn't a proper cape, but you know what I mean? It was that sort of flowing. That was just beautiful. Lovely film, looks gorgeous, fantastic acting. Vincent Price just being Vincent Price is amazing. Sue Allen, played by Phyllis Kirk, I think her name was. She's amazing in it. And Carlin Jones is in it as well. She's annoying, but you know, Morticia Adams. And just all that wax, mannequins, all that shit, all that creepy shit, that's fucking great. As always, you know, leave your comments about House of Wax below in the comment section. You know, tell us your favourite Vincent Price film. And, you know, check us out on Twitter and Insta at the Fright Club NI, and check the website out, www.thefrightclubni.com. We still have a couple of t-shirts on there. Go ahead and buy one if you want.
And patches.
And the patches as well, yes. We've got some of the wee mini patches on there too.
Yeah, and please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Let your horror friends know about it as well. We're only 5 subscribers away from 200, and it'll be absolutely fantastic to hit that before Halloween.
We'd love to hit 200 on our birthday, really. Yeah. It's coming up shortly. Our second birthday overall is coming up shortly, but our first birthday for Monday Night Frights is coming up, so we'd appreciate if you know, if you could do that, and it would be great to hit 200 before Halloween. So but yeah, love doing this, and you know, we'll be back next week with a brand new episode, we hope. It'll be fantastic next week. Definitely next week will be fantastic. I know we said this week was going to be fantastic, but definitely next week will be fantastic.
Next week is going to be super fantastic with we're going to visit an old friend.
Yes, a friend. It's not exactly a horror movie, but it's a horror movie about one of the most famous horror movies ever made. So
yeah,
it'll be fun, and we will have a special guest. So yes, please join us next week. Like, share, comment, all that good stuff, and check the website and social medias. So that's it, Danny. You need to go and get a glass of water.
I need to go and take me a lemon sip.
Take a wee lemon sip and go and eat some food that you can't taste. You may as well just go and eat paper.
Might as well just go shut on a big bag of paper and drink the lemon sip, get some vitamins.
I know, and get a wee early night. And
snooze. And I'll be all right as rain come our next chat.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Get vaccinated, folks.
Yes, do. Definitely get vaccinated. It works.
It works. It could have been so much worse, but it wasn't, because I'm vaccinated.
Exactly. Listen to this man. So anyway, all the best. Take care. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.